What's good everybody, this is CP and welcome to a very special video. Today let's talk juicy speculations and NHL rumors. So what's good everybody, I just want to quickly keep everyone up to date on some of the most interesting rumors to surface over the past little while. First off, regarding the Montreal Canadiens, Christian Dvorak's name has been heating up in the rumor mill once again, as we saw his name come up before the draft and free agency, but obviously nothing materialized and the Canadiens couldn't get rid of him. But in an article done by Jimmy Murphy of the Montreal Hockey Now, it is reported that there is potential trade talks surrounding Dvorak again, as Kent Hughes of the Canadiens has expressed the desire to continue to tweak his roster before heading into this new NHL season. And to me personally, this does kind of make sense, and I think the writing might be on the wall for a player like Dvorak, especially since the Canadiens recently acquired Sean Monahan in their most recent trade with the Calgary Flames, and many suspect that they will either let Monahan play out the remainder of his contract in Montreal, which is only 1 year, or they will try to build up his trade value and flip him for more assets at next year's trade deadline. Financially, we also can't forget that the Canadiens need money to get Kirby Dach signed, as it is speculated that he will likely come in at around 1.8 to 2.4 million range. So heading into this season, they will need to shed salary elsewhere. And as of right now, it looks like Suzuki, Dach, and Monahan will be their top 3 centers heading into next season. So many people speculate that Dvorak is most likely the odd man out here. And if we deep dive into his situation, he is actually currently on a rather good deal, which sees him come in at a 4.45 cap hit per season for 3 more years. Overall, I think this is a very reasonable contract, especially for teams looking for a low-end second-line center or a decent third-line center who can probably give you around 35 to 40 points and around 15 to 20 goals a year. However, based on what we saw this summer in the offseason along with the market we have right now, Dvorak's trade value does not seem that high, as the Canadiens are rumored to be having a hard time trying to move him. One executive said they'll be lucky to get a 3rd round pick, likely just a 4th for Dvorak though. Another team source whose club has inquired is hoping it won't cost more than a 3rd. So obviously flipping a 3rd or a 4th for Dvorak is actually a pretty good bargain in my books. And I'm just speculating here, so as a non-certified YouTube hockey expert, I could be wrong, but if I had to guess, I would probably say a team like the Boston Bruins might have inquired about Dvorak, especially before they brought back Bergeron and Krejci. It sounded like the team was trying to find ways to solidify their forward group again. As we all know, their core is getting older and they have been trying to retool for the last few years. So it does kind of make sense for them to try to target someone like Dvorak if they want to stay competitive in the Atlantic Division, or at least have a chance to stay afloat against teams like the Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Tampa Bay Lightning, as many think they need to bring in younger bodies to add some depth at the center position. And based on what is available in the open market right now, it seems like Dvorak might be a reasonable player for the Bruins to target. Cause yes, they signed Bergeron and Krejci, but they're not young and they likely maybe only have 1 or 2 good seasons left in them. And the Bruins might be 1 injury away from a lot of trouble. So in my opinion, bringing in a player like Christian Dvorak definitely gives this team a little bit more insurance, especially at the center position. Do you think the Bruins should trade for a player like Christian Dvorak from the Montreal Canadiens? Let me know why or why not in the comments below. Another team who I feel like might have inquired about Dvorak is probably the Detroit Red Wings. Steve Yzerman obviously done a good job of retooling and upgrading his team a bit over this offseason. The last time I checked, they still have some cap space left and they could use a little bit more help in their top 9. So if Yzerman wants his team to be that much more competitive this year, I feel like bringing in a player like Dvorak, who is 26, might be a very good fit for their current roster, as he still has a few years left on his contract and might be that perfect hybrid 2C or 3C to grow with their current forward group. So do you think Dvorak would be a good fit on the Detroit Red Wings heading into this season, or should Steve Yzerman target someone else? Once again, comment below, let me know your thoughts. Moving on, I want to talk about another interesting tweet I recently came across from Murphy's Law 74 of Montreal Hockey Now. Apparently, Elliot Friedman reported that the Habs and the Oilers discussed a potential sign and trade involving defenseman John Klingberg earlier in the offseason. Wow. Yes, we're talking about John Klingberg, one of the biggest free agents of the summer, and potentially joining Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, that's a big speculation, but I did some further digging, and the article on MontrealNow.com does a great job of summarizing the situation. So for all the juicy details, be sure to check their site out later. However, to paraphrase, on a recent episode of 32 Thoughts, Elliot Friedman talked about how the Oilers tried very hard to land John Klingberg through a sign and trade, but ultimately could not afford his salary demands. Friedman said before he ended up in Anaheim, I do think bracket Edmonton Oilers were looking at Klingberg and they were trying to do something with another team, potentially Montreal. Klingberg would sign with Montreal and then get traded to Edmonton. Montreal would have retained a bit and the Oilers would have added a sweetener, and maybe they had to move a player or two. I do think that was talked about. So very, very interesting. For Edmonton Oilers fans, let's break this down. Now obviously the deal never happened, and financial numbers aside, my best guess would be the Canadiens probably wanted Holland to put in at least one first-round pick as a sweetener, much like later in the offseason when the Calgary Flames traded Monahan to Montreal and added a first-round pick, but Holland probably didn't want to do that. And also from afar, I think the one or two players who could have been involved in the deal might have been Jesse Puljujarvi and probably a defenseman like Tyson Barrie. If you have been following Edmonton Oilers rumors early this year, Puljujarvi's name has constantly been on a trade block, so not much of a surprise there. Besides that, if we look at the Oilers' current defense, especially on the right side, Evan Bouchard and Cody Ceci are likely not going anywhere. So by default, Tyson Barrie might have been the odd man out in order for the rumored Klingberg deal to go down. And salary wise, it does kind of make sense as Tyson Barrie is a $4.5 million cap hit and Puljujarvi ended up signing for $3 million. So around $7.5 million, which is close to what Klingberg is making. Or better yet, I think Klingberg might have demanded even more, maybe closer to $8 million when the offseason started. But obviously no one was willing to pay him that much. Nonetheless, this is a very, very interesting take on the Oilers side of things. Main things I want to point out is that 1, Holland was definitely working behind the scenes this summer. And perhaps he has been hearing us or reading all your YouTube comments. So continue to comment on all my videos if you want Holland to give the people what they want. But to my point, he probably knows his defense isn't good enough and was definitely looking for ways to improve the right side especially. Secondly, a name like John Klingberg might still be on his watch list and might be a potential trade target for the Edmonton Oilers, as I could see this be a future deal that he tries to revisit maybe later in the year. Since Klingberg only signed a 1-year deal in Anaheim, and if I had to guess, maybe Holland believes that his trade value could somewhat depreciate this year, playing on a bad team like the Ducks. Therefore, if he waits until closer to the trade deadline, he could maybe land Klingberg for cheaper than what Montreal was asking. Also, he doesn't have to lock him up on a long-term deal if he doesn't want to. So if my speculations are right, I think that's a very logical plan for Holland and management to follow. But personally, my question to you is, do you think John Klingberg is a player the Oilers should trade for? And can he bring Edmonton's defense to the next level to possibly go deep in the 3rd round or take a run at the Cup? Or should Ken Holland continue to shop and look for someone else? Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with everything I said in this video? Make sure you let me know in the comments below. And if you like, feel free to call me out as well. If you want to watch more of my crappy videos, then make sure you click the links on the side right here.